Okay, so Rick, you should see the live button on my screen. It's over on the left top corner.
Mm-hmm. I see
and what that means is that we are public, so we probably don't have any viewers, but sometimes we do get a person or two. But the live video also means that our discussion is being recorded. And so people can watch us on YouTube. That's what the YouTube link was about. That's also where the videos are housed. And so let me go ahead and kind of get us into this and start by saying welcome, everyone, to our first session, our first book. I'm calling it Cluster One, under the banner Reading for Change, A Collective Journey. And Venita knows that name has been around for kind of as long as I've been doing these video book groups, because initially, and even still, I kind of see it as an umbrella for what could be multiple book groups that focus on different things. And so the group that's been most active is called the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. And we are about to read our 14th book starting in about 3 weeks. We're going to be reading Cast by Isabel Wilson. And then there's another series called the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series. And we've done about 3 books under that title. And so this is the first one under the Reading for Change banner. And what the different names kind of mean to me is just a way of kind of focusing our attention. And so the Black feminist focuses on issues related to Black people, issues related to women, issues related to feminism. The Love Leadership series kind of reflects my belief that love is really important, and kind of came into a world where I think that was pretty well known, but as the decades go on, it seems less and less clear that there's a widespread understanding of love, or belief in love, or practice of love. And so sometimes I get in the mood to kind of focus our attention on that. And then, of course, first and foremost, I am a human being. And so some things just affect me and us because we're human beings. And so, for example, what we're all going through right now with coronavirus is one of those kinds of things that just cuts across all boundaries. And with all of the madness that's going on around coronavirus, I really wanted to kind of focus my attention, our attention, on some science, because we can see in the public square, science is taking a beating. And this particular book, The Coming Plague, by Laurie Garrett. The Coming Plague by Laurie Garrett. Newly Emerging Diseases in a World Out of Balance. Garrett, this book is kind of old. It's this reprint edition is published in 1995. I first heard about the book in 2012. A doctor friend of mine was telling me that I really should read this book. And I never got around to it, but it's been on my mind ever since. And Laurie Garrett has been very popular on the speaker circuit ever since coronavirus and COVID-19 have been on the scene. So I felt like this was maybe a good time to delve into this text. And I'm so glad that you did. And Rick, and just for anybody that doesn't know, there's a public page on Facebook Reading for Change, a collective journey. And that's where people can find the YouTube link to watch our videos and events, invitations to the public event and related things that may come up around this topic. There's also a YouTube page where the videos are housed. And of course, for us, there's the private group where we get the links to come into the discussion. And if there's anybody else out there watching the video and you decide you want to be a part of the discussion, please let me know. There's always an email address in the video's description. So I am Logan Michelle Odom. And I am located in Brooklyn, New York. And just wanted to say, Rick, there's also a schedule on either the public or private Facebook page that kind of shows us being here basically every week through around December 2nd, I think, with a couple of breaks in there. And we're going to do about 50 or so pages a week to get through this tome by the end of the year. What else? I did an extensive agenda tonight, and, I told both of you that I really didn't want us to do that. But I'm just crazy that way, Venita will tell you. So let's go on and introduce everybody. And Venita, you want to start?
Good evening. My name is Venita Walker, and I'm joining you from Cromwell. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rick Terry.
And where are you located, Rick Terry?
Oh, in Queens, New York.
Queens, New York. All right. All right. So if you open the agenda, let me see. I did just kind of, I think, want to say a word about facilitation, Rick. Venita has been doing these book groups with me going back to the beginning in 2014. And normally what we do is we rotate the facilitator. So every week, somebody takes responsibility for facilitating, and they write a little summary of the week's readings and come up with a few questions. But I wanted to not give us so much work this time, and especially because I know I'm getting ready to start the second book group in a few weeks. And my brain is not what it used to be. I mean, even doing the agenda that I did tonight, that's normally fun for me, but it was kind of hard. I'm like, COVID has really taken that. Coronavirus has really taken its toll and aged me dramatically in these last few months. So I'm not trying to work that hard. So, so I'm thinking that, if you feel up to writing agenda, you can always do that. Just kind of have a fallback position of focusing on the some kind of standard questions like the examples that I put in tonight's agenda. I think what's the most interesting thing you found in this? It's going to be hard for me to not come up with a couple of questions, I think. But, I want us to not work so hard this time around. So, it's acceptable.
I said, thank you so much, Michelle, because, this is a big book. We will formulate a couple of questions, but we won't be doing what you're doing over here. This is a fabulous book.
Yeah.
But a lot of books.
Yeah, it reminds me kind of in style of Medical Apartheid, which we did a few years ago, Rick, and just put my little heart in that one. And, I'm just not, I just don't have the energy for it. So, mostly I just want to have a place where we can kind of keep our attention focused on reality, because we are having the shit gaslit out of us right about now in the public square. And it's very disturbing, very disturbing. But my way of coping, throughout life, has been to try to stay focused on the truth, try to stay focused on reality. I've known gaslighters personally, kind of throughout my life. And so I have found that to be a kind of a very effective strategy of keeping your sanity in a world that really appears to be going insane. And I don't want to go with them. So yeah, we don't have to work so hard. We just have to stay honest. Rick, I'm talking a lot, and it's only because this is your first time. We try to have discussions, not lectures, and we try to limit ourselves to maybe about 5 minutes or so each. Sometimes we have used a timekeeper to keep us all on track. So I hope we can do that. And I set this up to be from 6 to 7. I don't have anywhere to go. COVID has me in the house, period. So if we, if we're in a discussion and we want to go a bit longer, it's more likely than not, it's fine with me. But I think when it gets to be about 7 or so, we should just stop ourselves, because all of us, I know everybody here, and all of us, including myself, can talk a blue streak. So, so why don't we get started? Venita, would you start and read the on the agenda? Read the summary for the preface and the introduction, please.
Sure. The emergence and spread of a new infectious disease poses a significant threat to the future of humans. Modern life makes us more vulnerable to widespread disease. The dramatic increase in worldwide movement of people, goods, and ideas is the driving force behind globalization of disease. The history of HIV, AIDS, provides a dramatic example. With many coincidences leading to its initial detection, a worldwide early warning system is needed. Laurie Garrett introduces us to the pioneers leading the way. Introduction. Dr. Bernard Silver, am I pronouncing that correctly?
I think so.
Okay. Uncle Bernard influenced Laurie Garrett's understanding of medicine. Uncle Bernard witnessed the 1918-19 flu pandemic and learned medicine before the 1944 introduction of the first antibiotic. Scientists were sending alarms in the late 20th century about humanity's ancient enemies, microbes. HIV, AIDS, provides a prism through which to see humanity's failure and lack of preparedness for emerging and returning diseases. Though our sense of interconnectedness has grown, we still need a great understanding and embracing of complexity that melds the knowledge of multiple disciplines. This book examines the recent history of disease emergence and reason for microbial, I can never pronounce that word, microbial epidemics and our response to them.
I think it's microbial.
Is it microbial? Is that correct, Rick?
I think so.
Okay. Microbial epidemics and our response to them. The book also examines the biology of evolution at the microbial level, how humans are currently aiding and abetting microbes. And the book also examines and offers some solutions. Page 10 and 11. Fear without potential mitigating solutions can be very volatile. Okay.
Thank you. Read chapter 1 summary, please.
Oh, sorry. I can't access the agenda without not hearing you guys anymore because of my phone. Let me try something.
Okay.
I can do this.
So I'll go ahead and read that. One summary.
Can you hear me?
Machupo. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can find a way.
Will you get it?
Yeah, not through my phone, but let me try to open a computer here and see if I can get it to run. Give me just 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and read the summary. Chapter 1, Machupo, Bolivian. Now, I don't know how to say this one, Venita. I think it's hemorrhagic.
That's what, yeah.
Bolivian hemorrhagic fever. Okay. How to of a deadly emerging disease, doctors Ron McKenzie, Carl Johnson, Merle Coons, and Patricia Webb, perilous trips by land, air, and sea between their lab in the Panama Canal Zone and the remote Bolivian village of San Joaquin. Their work to isolate and contain a highly contagious and deadly microbial enemy causing Bolivian hemorrhagic fever. 2-year period between 1962 and 1964, researchers and villagers worked to determine if the microbe was bacterium, virus, or parasite, identify its characteristics, learn how it spreads, and stop the epidemic that had infected nearly 50% of the region and killed almost half its victims. The courageous work to catalog thousands of mammals and insects to find the culprit included close encounters in the night with red-eyed anacondas. Found in a certain type of rodent, calamize, the insect carrying the virus, was unleashed by a change in the natural environment resulting from chopping down dense forests to grow corn and other vegetables. An outcome of the 1952 revolution removing Bolivian and Brazilian oligarchs. A similar virus was discovered in 1953 in Argentina in a rodent from the same family and was also unleashed by a change in the natural habitat. Dr. Carl Johnson would move from this heroic journey to lead the NIH's Middle America Research Unit and would influence a generation of virologists. Rick,
Yes.
are you there?
Yes, I can read the other summary.
Okay.
So, health transition, the age of optimism, setting out to eradicate disease. Optimism, born of ignorance, led the world in the successful campaign to eradicate smallpox and great failure in the fight against malaria in the age of boosterism. During the middle of the 20th century, with the introduction of a wide range of antibiotics and vaccines, scientists waged a courageous public health campaign through war, social tyranny, famine, and natural disasters against a smallpox scourge that had plagued humanity since the days of the Roman Empire. Under the leadership of Drs. T. A. Henderson and Isa Uarita, Drs. Daniel Tarantola, Don Francis, David Heyman, and dozens of highly skilled WHO teams around the world, the smallpox virus would come to heal. On the other hand, was the great failure to eradicate the malaria parasite. By 1975, cases of malaria had increased 2.5 times since 1961, and no one in the scientific community would even speak of conquering this disease. Though Dr. Paul Russell at Harvard had been optimistic about the prospects provided by DDT and chloroquine, Rachel Carson, author of Silent Spring, saw early that the widespread use of insecticide and antibiotics would cause malaria and other parasites, bacteria and viruses, to develop resistance to these weapons. There was much the optimists did not know about genetics, microbial evolution, the human immune system, and disease ecology. Therein lies the danger.
All right. So we are ready.
Excuse me, Rick.
Uh-huh.
Yes?
If I must compliment you, you have one of the most fabulous voices.
Oh, no, thank you. But you got great voices too. I'm so sorry I missed this.
No,
I'm blushing. This is not the place. Oh.
You're a great storyteller. Great.
That's his French accent. And you know what I was thinking about earlier? Rick is he's a white guy. He's a European. And we became friends as co-workers several years ago. And, you know, I was thinking we better get this, and we've talked over the years about doing a book group together. And I was thinking today, we better go ahead and get this thing in because, you know, if Donald has his way, Rick, we may not be able to do this in a year or so from now. You know,
we have to live in the moment. We have to live in the moment. You're correct.
And 2020 is not over. Zombies for Christmas.
Just Rick, I was for a minute, and here we go. Okay. All right. So we gotta live in the moment.
Exactly.
I have to excuse myself for 1 minute. You all go ahead and get started on one or more of the questions. I will be right back. Venita, why don't you get us started?
Okay. We're going to go over a couple of key points and discussion questions. All right. What if anything, did you learn in this week's readings? That's number one. Question number two, what was the most interesting thing to you in this week's readings? Question number three, what questions or discussion starters occurred to you from this week's reading? Okay, Rick.
So those are
you elaborate on?
What if anything did I learn in this week's readings, I'd say. And it would be that whatever the science, whatever the progress, the intellectualism, the great minds of the world, even they, when they hear about an epidemic, they deny it. So what I learned is that everybody's in disbelief all the time. It's not just people who are not educated. It's even the most educated people are always skeptical at first and say, you're blowing this out of proportion. It might just be influenza. Yeah, people are bleeding, but it's a different region, et cetera, et cetera. So what I learned is really that everybody is in disbelief with the fact that an epidemic happens. And I happened to stumble upon a quote from Albert Camus, the French author who wrote a book called The Plague. And in it, he just says at the end, war and epidemics are part of normal life, but yet people are always act surprised when they happen. So what was interesting is, is really this, is that whatever your level of education, where you come from, until it hits you, you don't believe it exists.
Yeah. We still have people that don't believe it exists.
That's exactly what I was thinking. We still have people that do not believe it exists.
You have people who don't believe that AIDS exists. You have people who don't believe that cancer is a real thing and that there's actually a miracle cure out there in the nature. When you think about it, there are a lot of people who deny disease more than they deny anything else.
Yes.
Really? I'm shocked at the level of denial going on.
I think the level hasn't changed. I just think that people are more vocal about their denial. Before they kept their kind of denial to themselves. But now, I just think people are just more vocal about saying, I don't believe this, or it's a Democratic hoax.
And also in the past, the dive bar conversations stayed in the dive bar. Now it's, you're drunk, you write something on Facebook and it becomes global. So everybody's just vomiting. I mean, I've never seen so many experts all of a sudden. Everybody has a medical degree now, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so much so that today people go to the doctors and go to see their physicians. And I've heard physicians complain in conversations with them that they have to remind the patient that they are the physician. They go to the physician and tell the physician what medication they need and what they want them to do.
Steve Jobs, brilliant man. The guy, and I don't know, I heard that it has a name actually as a paradox. The more intelligent you are in one field, the more blind you are to your ignorance in all other fields. So when you're always successful in one field all of your life and build an empire, when people tell you have cancer, it's like you're a bunch of idiots. I'm Steve Jobs. My brain is incredible. I will do what no doctor has ever found, how to cure my own cancer. And he died from a cancer he could have actually outlived.
I didn't know that.
So, I think it's the Dunning something effect. So if you're an ignorant person, you're actually better off than somebody too smart, because somebody too smart will always think they're smarter than anybody else and smarter than reality, whereas somebody ignorant kind of understands they don't know everything.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
Makes sense. What question are we on?
We're in the standard questions for the key points, 1, 2, and 3. You could choose whichever one you'd like to address. Would you like me to repeat them?
Okay.
Number 1.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, in terms of interesting, I like her writing style a lot. She's a storyteller, and it's a lot. It's a lot, but fortunately, she is a good storyteller. So I enjoyed, kind of how she weaved in the political situation, the wars, the confrontations with war leaders, and all of that. That image of the doctors on the little helicopter standing up, headed into the jungle. I could just see it and feel it all. The people out in the river in the middle of the night, looking at the rays of the anaconda. I could just see it all, and it really was affecting me viscerally. So I think I like Laurie Garrett.
Yes, her descriptions were very vivid. So vivid, in fact, that these men were very were very courageous. Because if I had to stand up on a plane, then right then, there might not have been any eradication of any disease, virus, bacteria, or anything else. Okay, because at least give me a chance to sit down and something. These men, that doctor was courageous.
Well,
remember, and that part was,
remember at the beginning, he says he's not there for that. And they're like, hey, would you mind looking that up? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then he takes the airplane. He's like, why did I do that? He's like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I was not supposed to go there. Why am I going in the middle of nowhere where people are dying in the masses and people murmur the name of the city, seriously?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't picture most doctors being that courageous, doctors or scientists.
No.
Well, they did earn their courage because they went through the disease. Sure, they got the army to help them out and send them like the biggest expert on earth, and that's why they survived. But they went through the suffering, and they know how scary it must have been. Like, seriously, when he describes the pain, you're like, okay, you don't wish that to your worst enemy.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Did you answer one of the questions, Venita?
No. Question number 1. What, if anything, did you learn in this week's reading? What I did learn is that we're in some serious trouble. Because describing the way they approached the eradication of these diseases in the years prior to this, which was quite a ways back, it's not like we don't have a blueprint to some of the basic things that we should be doing. That we're not doing, that as of today, certain people in the highest office in our country has convinced the CDC, and I do believe that now, even if you've been exposed to COVID-19, if you don't have symptoms, there's no reason to get tested. Now, from what I'm understanding with these diseases back in the 40s and prior to, I said, no, that was one of the biggest parts of helping to eradicate the disease. You know, and they didn't even have a lot of the things that we have available to us today. That's what's so sad about it. They didn't even have the technology. Remember, they didn't know anything about anything, cells, you know. And if they can do all that with like a chisel, you know, we are in serious trouble. And we have technology. We have the wherewithal. We have the money. We have lots of folks. So what I got from reading is that we are in some very serious trouble with all the tools at hand, and we're not using any of them, literally any of them, to help eradicate COVID-19.
Well, the book hints on maybe the reason why they're not doing it is you look at smallpox versus malaria. Smallpox, they did things that were unacceptable in terms of medical ethics. They forced people to get vaccinated. People who the religion, maybe it's superstition, but down the line, the patient is the only person who can accept any form. I'm pro-vaccination, but I believe that forcing ancient cultures to get vaccinated, even if it helps them, here's the thing. Europeans, we have the habit to come to other countries and help them despite their wishes. And I think the reason why these diseases could get eradicated was a lot for imperialism and forcing countries to behave certain ways and forcing people to get vaccinated or isolated. And you look at right now, the only country that had a major outbreak that was able to control it was China. And how? Through totalitarian methods. Through forcing people to stay in homes from. So you look at what he says in the book and you're wondering, is it possible to contain an epidemic without destroying part of people's dignity? Not just freedom, dignity. Like, the only way we can know if we can cure that disease is to, let's say, open a child and look at their brain, but they won't survive the procedure. And that's actually part of a video game that I played a long while back. It's a real question. So the problem is we have, I think the government is very scared of one thing, is that if they start mandating, they know that the natural reaction, at least of Americans, and even in Europe, is going to be spoiled brats saying why. And we've seen that with mask mandates. That's not that big a deal, but it's already a lot. So what happens when we tell them you need to get vaccinated for coronavirus? You need to report yourself. Like, it's a very complicated issue when you think about it. It's that to eradicate diseases, it's not about just the technology, it's about the political power, the might. So, question mark there.
I think it's more a political fight than anything else, to be honest with you, Rick. With Michelle and I discussed on numerous occasions that they can come out with a vaccination today or tomorrow and Venita won't be taking it.
Yeah.
And that's not because of religious reasons. That's not because of cultural reasons. But Venita has learned from our past, and I happen to be Black. There's a lot of experimentation going on. And I just don't plan to be one of those first ones out the gate that you're going to experiment on. So,
And that's why randomized clinical trials were created by a socialist doctor, actually, Archie Cochrane in the UK, because in the past, before the 50s, people were, they were taking prisoners or, so for example, antibiotics, we know that some work in concentration camps in Europe helped on, of course, people who weren't supposed to survive. And the same thing happened in the United States with African-American people and Native Americans and prisoners. They experimented radiation on sex offenders, and they irradiated their testicles in the 50s in the United States. Nobody cared because, sex offenders. But still, the ethical question is how do we stop people from, like I heard really people say, let's experiment directly on people who are dying for COVID. You can't be doing that. And people are already there. And it's very scary to see that people looking for who are anti-vax, looking for a miracle cure, accept any sort of craziness and crazy ideas like herd immunity without a vaccine. That's called natural selection. So it's very, what's very scary is not the political realm. It's that people are the first force in denying the epidemic and being ready to commit horrible acts to get, release from the disease. So it's very, very troubling, what she talks about in the book, the fact that people think they can, eradicate diseases. I think that's the most disturbing thing. Can we eradicate diseases? Really? Or can we only contain them?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rick, what grade are you giving Andrew Cuomo on how he led this city through the initial period of coronavirus? And I'm asking from the perspective, the point that you made about that you're making about forcing people. Because I think that Andrew Cuomo probably did as good a job as anybody could do in trying to explain plain language why he was asked to do what he was asking us to do. Would you agree with that?
It's odd because people hate Bill de Blasio and love Cuomo right now, but at the very beginning in March, all epidemiologists were telling everybody, you need to quarantine now. The curve is becoming exponential. We see it after 200 contaminations in the city. It's on. The virus is gonna rampage everybody. So de Blasio wanted to close earlier, and Cuomo stalled. And we know from several studies that if we had shut down a week earlier, like de Blasio wanted, maybe we would have saved about 12,000 lives. So and here's the thing, I'm not judging Cuomo, but the thing is still the same. He's just a human being. So I don't know, and it's not over. I think he should be careful with the bragging. He's starting to be a little bit braggy, But I think he did he did a good job. It's just that he did what our standards are so low now that what a basic president or governor should be doing, we find incredible. And Cuomo is good, but he's he's no Kennedy in front of the Berlin Wall, or or Martin Luther King in Washington and on Selma's Bridge. He's not there, he's really not there. He just did what we should have been doing, basically. And that's what disturbs me, is that Trump has made everything look incredible.
Yes. It's true. It's the truth.
Yes.
It's the truth, Rick. I agree. I have to agree with you there. People doing basically what they should be doing. It looks like it's just a miracle to us.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad. Wow, Rick, I was good for a moment.
No, but it's like with Trump, you're like, oh, what did he do today? He golfed. Oh, it was a good day for us. Thank you.
Oh, please.
People complain he golfs. I'm like, go golf. Do it every day, man. Go for it. Just golf. Don't do anything else.
Right.
Don't watch TV. Stop watching Fox News. They're triggering you.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
Yeah. It's been interesting. It's been it's been interesting to see all of this intrigue play out. But another thing that kind of stood out for me with this reading is just at various points in my life, I've had to look back and think that the generation that I was born into was just so naive on so many levels. I was born at the very end of 1959, Rick. So, right in this age of boosterism, this age of optimism. But it was an optimism that was based on so much ignorance. And so that's kind of I don't know the adjective, but that's kind of gives me some kind of feeling about the generation that I was born into. But at the same time, it's interesting to be in this moment and to know how much more we know. And yet all of our knowledge doesn't seem to be helping us very much in this moment. And we still don't know and never really know what we don't know. So I don't know. I mean, do we expect too much of ourselves as a species? Do we, I mean, these insects, these bugs, they seem to be running circles around, literally and figuratively. And we seem to think that we can outsmart them and outdo them. But nature comes back with a roar every time. So I don't know. I guess I'm feeling kind of stupid as a human being.
Well, our wealth makes us also very vulnerable. Like she shows the reason why those rats started spreading in San Joaquin was because originally the oligarchs wanted more beef. So they told these guys, oh, your land doesn't have cattle, get a lot of cattle, and we'll buy them. And when the revolution happened, no more cattle. Well, still cattle, but nobody would buy them anymore. So they had to destroy all these forests, like the summary says. But the problem is that these rats were not a main species. They were a minority in terms of, they were weak compared to the incredible wealth of predators and preys you had in the rainforest. So they were kept in check as a population and were not spreading to human beings. As soon as they destroyed that, rats were like, hey, open field and corn. They multiplied. And so, and we hear that story all the time. That guy went to an island, he missed his homeland plant, so he brought it back, and well, the island is dead now. So when you move something in nature, everything moves with it. And things that have been around for thousands, even millions of years, untouched, well, we touch them and then we get sick and we're like, oh my God, what happened? And what's really scary is that those diseases were there for thousands of years already in those animals, but people weren't messing up with them, Like right now, whatever happened with coronavirus, somebody messed up with the wrong animal. Stop messing with animals. Just stop. Don't touch them anymore.
Yeah, Venita and I were noticing during the lockdown period in the New York, Connecticut area, how nature responded quickly to you being out of the way.
There's space.
Yeah. And it's just staggering to think about the damage this species does to like everything else in the ecosystem. Humans we have a lot to think about. I mean, I think folks need to go back in their house, take some time out and think about our footprint, on this planet, because it's not good.
And
Even,
people forget
the
that.
thing with the DD.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they just start spraying. You don't know what you're doing, and you're spraying chemicals all over the place. And it's like there's always this rush to think that we have the answer. That's why it scares the hell out of me. When the Mr. Wartime president over there started promising that we're going to have a vaccine for coronavirus by the end of this year. What arrogance? What is going on?
No, but the problem with he knows what he's doing, because he can absolutely release a vaccine that will be safe but efficacious. Because here's the thing: the only way a vaccine works is duration of protection. So you need to vaccinate people, and another group you don't vaccinate, and you tell them to go do their, have their daily activities for about 6 months to a year. And a year later, you call them back in and you test them and you see who was contaminated, who wasn't. And that's how your vaccine protects people for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. Right now, we'll know it works for a month. Nice. But the epidemic never stops. So it's just a month. But then Trump says, look, I have look, Russia did the same thing and China is doing the same thing. In other words, America is now a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yes,
it's done. It's done.
Yeah.
We didn't see it coming, or maybe we did, and we're like, nah, it's science fiction. I'm crazy, and there it is. Very discreet. Well, not very discreet, but you get used to that, and that's the strange thing about it. Like, I don't care anymore about his tweets because it's all gaslighting. When he'll be in real trouble, he'll gaslight people by using the N-word. I'm guaranteeing you he'll do it. The day he needs people to look elsewhere, he'll outrage people and people will jump on it. And here's the trick: don't get outraged at him, because that's what he wants. He thrives on chaos. But he can't, he can't get into a fight with coronavirus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
you want to look at it? You want to look at any other questions? Anybody have any other thoughts they want to share tonight?
I just story-wise, I think Coons is right, and I think Johnson is wrong. At the very end about the cause of the disease, we have a disagreement. Because Coons points out the fact that he was at a party and didn't get sick, but he didn't have, and he's saying it very discreetly, sex after the party. He doesn't say it directly, but he says that what the real difference is what you guys did after the party. Yeah, that's a guy thing to say, guys, you messed up after the party. I didn't, and you got sick. I didn't. And so, he's not, the whole food thing, he doesn't believe. He thinks it's people sleeping.
I missed that. But I did think that she was hinting something. And how she ended that story on the hemorrhagic fever. But then Johnson, goes on to be the doctor that influences a generation of virologists. So, I was wondering. But we have a lot of chapters to go. So, I'm sure these names are going to come up again.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I have the quote. To Johnson's theory that 3 of the scientists got the disease as a result of feasting at the fiesta, he said with a wink, you ought to think about what you did after the fiesta, boys, not what you ate.
Oh.
It's on page 28.
Oh, I missed that too, Red.
Oh, that's that was the part where I was like, wait, he was about to get married. Oh.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
So Coons
Yeah,
tells
that
him that
was
Mm,
I love that passage because it showed how, even scientists could maybe find other explanations of the right one to
mhm.
cover their tracks, even though as long as the result is the same,
Yes.
no longer. But it's interesting, that passage. I was like, wait, did the guy come up with a theory to not admit that, yeah, he messed up?
Mm,
yeah. Another thing that was interesting to me in the last segment, at first I want to say in that chapter 2, I think she put a lot of time and energy and detail into the smallpox story.
yes.
But I think Laurie Garrett was out of steam when she started talking about the malaria campaign because it was just kind of brief.
Yes, it
It
was.
doesn't give you the same. But the
Mm.
one thing about the malaria campaign didn't make sense to me was that Dr. Russell, who is the one that wrote the report that got Congress to lay out all of that money to start the malaria eradication campaign. Um, and he was excited about the DDT and the chloroquine and all of that. That's what made him think it was possible. But it was Rachel Carson who, from what I could see, does not have a doctorate, did not have a doctorate, though she studied science. She's the one that kind of saw early on that, there was going to be this evolution of the parasites, bacteria, and virus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, did that not occur to Dr. Russell? How did he miss that?
Mm.
How did that happen?
How old was he?
Huh?
How old was Dr. Russell? Because if he had been trained before the introduction of DNA, and they talk about it in the book, he couldn't see that these parasites were not just, people were like, parasites are big bugs, we just kill them, but we can't, crush them in the body, so we poison them. So DDT and chloroquine is a poison. It used to be sold in ancient China as a poison, and high doses will kill you. And so DDT and chloroquine are poisons, but the problem is that he did not understand that DNA, the more you kill a species massively, the more it mutates. And when I'm talking about species, I'm talking about species that can multiply fast. I'm talking about insects that can give birth to 1,000 eggs, So each life cycle is 4 or 5 days, and they have 1,000 of them. So if you kill 999, the more resistant is going to reproduce, have 1,000 of itself, and so on and so on. So in just a matter of just a few years, insects have become even more resistant. But the only way to think about that is DNA. So, I always think, why scientists couldn't find something? Maybe, they use the word paradigm for everything, but this is a paradigm, the pre-DNA paradigm that, those are bugs, kill them. And cancer was thought like that for a long time too. Poison, they'll work. Just dose it perfectly well.
Yeah, but it's that kind of paradigm, naivete, political agendas, all that kind of stuff that I think makes it hard for us in this present moment, at the age of coronavirus, to always trust the science and the scientists. And I'm very of science, I think, compared to what we see going on with the anti-maskers and all of that. But I'm aware that science has had some problematic you know, as Venita was mentioning early, the medical experimentation on Black people, just Black people. I mean, you know, the coercion that we were talking about earlier that shows up in this book. You know, scientists have bear some responsibility, I think, for making it so difficult for us to trust them. And it's not just scientists. I mean, we're living, unfortunately, in an era where trusting anybody, trusting the politicians, you know, as Venita was talking about today, the freaking CDC is, you know, where have they been through all of this? You know, every time I have to see that man, what's the word when you've been captured and held a prisoner, Rick, and you have this syndrome?
Stockholm syndrome. When you start loving your captor and like, I'm going to help you. I want to be part of your cause. It's freaky, but it happens actually.
Every time I look at that Redmond guy from the CDC, I mean, he just looks like he's been through some shit.
I think the only cure against what you're talking about is that when you look at great scientists in history, science is amoral. Science doesn't care about good and evil. It cares about, you know, what's the secret code of the universe and matter. So if you find out I'm allowed to cut down human limbs on a living human, you're damn sure you'll find some people to do it. And a lot of great scientific achievements have been accelerated through wars. Because during wars, you're like, yeah, no randomized clinical trial. Let's just try that. Oh, if they died, well, let's try this. Oh, they died too. But oh, this works. Okay, this sticks. It's really horrible, and so I think the problem is more than people are not educated anymore about the basics of science, which will allow them to be critical of what they hear, not to the point of saying I'm a doctor, but to the point of saying what that doctor says sounds odd, at least, and they would, you know, counter. They would look at other sources. It's like when a doctor tells you there's nothing wrong with you and you feel there's something wrong, you seek a second opinion. What I notice is that people look up to scientists like they look up to any other celebrity now. You're pure. Oh, you were wrong once. I hate you now. Which is, you know, it's Fauci has been wrong for years on a lot of things. And science, this is how you recognize science versus bogus science. Science is never absolutely right. It acknowledges it's limited, and it always tells you a good science project always tells you the conditions under which it was undertaken. And I remember a German philosopher who was naturalized American in the 50s, Popper, said the only way to recognize science, a real theory, scientific, is it must allow you to formulate the conditions under which it would be false. So, for example, all swans are white. Well, if you find one black swan, then your theory is wrong. So that theory could be scientific because you can think about a situation where there wouldn't be a white swan. So that was his criterion, and I think it's a good one. Like when you hear somebody tell you something, think about the alternative. What if there was that rule was not always true? Is there an instance? But people don't do that anymore. So, or have never done it, and it's a real failure of the education system.
Absolutely. Okay.
And, you know, just for example, when you think about scientists, the whole thing about celebrities, it's very dangerous because there's been incredible authors and scientists in the first half of the 20th century. You don't want to look at what they did in the 40s. Except Einstein, but you know, he was Jewish, so he had to flee. But you have some incredible names: Niels Bohr, Heisenberg. In 1941, they were on the side of, you know, the Reich, and I think that scientists are human beings, and we have to stop putting people on pedestals, you know. And scientists have to. It's a teamwork. When they say he discovered that or she discovered that, it's not true. You know, it's they discovered that, and somebody's the main author. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Venita, any final thoughts?
No, I think Rick said it all. I really don't have anything
Yeah.
other than we're in serious trouble. That's all that comes to my mind after reading this chapter and paralleling it to what's going on now. It's scary.
Yeah, and like I said, this book was first published in 1994, and I've heard Laurie Garrett say in recent months that the reason she wrote the follow-up book, which is called The Betrayal of Trust, is because she did offer some solutions in this book. But by the time she wrote Betrayal of Trust, she could see that she was warning about and things she was suggesting were not being done. So I agree, Venita, we're in serious trouble, and we shall see.
One question for Rick.
Sure.
And I won't say this won't happen because every day it seems like our lives are changing in very challenging ways because of that person. I can't even say the name. It makes me feel ill. That's in the White House.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since since this is a pretend democracy, at least it used to be. What do you think what can we do to control this disease?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be biblical. At one point, we have to face consequences. And the fact that here's the thing that people don't realize about Trump: the worst thing that can happen to him is being reelected, because this virus is going to wreck all of his ambitions, all of his attempts at controlling anything, because you're not closing things down because you are scared. You're closing them down because they cannot function anymore with the disease. And like, you can't have a working force if hospitals are overwhelmed. You know how many people get hurt at work every day? So in accidents and homicides, and shooting, you can't just do that. And Trump is just going to, whatever he tries to do, this virus is going to stick around as long as he doesn't do anything, because we know the solutions. But it takes leadership, and leadership is not just a guy telling people what to do. Is a guy, all the governors, all the mayors, and all the community leaders. And instead of gathering everybody and making sure everything's coordinated, he realized that if he had attempted that, he would have proven incompetent. So rather than being incompetent, he denies it exists. And here's the thing: is that this virus is kind of, I don't know, I know it's a horrible virus, but a lot of epidemiologists say it's a fascinating one, because it's kind of clever. And I don't think Trump is going to survive coronavirus. I'm not saying he's going to die from it or but I think whatever happens in November won't matter, because in less than a year or two, if he still denies it and he's still president, the country will be in such a state that he will have, it will be like the Soviet Union. All of a sudden, Gorbachev, president of a union that doesn't exist anymore. I think the United States are on the verge of collapse independently from the White House at that point. So I just wish November he will lose by a landslide, because otherwise, during the worst time of the second wave, because it's coming, it's already starting in Europe, you can see it. He's not going to care, and the government's going to be in disarray, so it's going to be even worse than what we saw in March.
That's what I think.
That's what I think.
That's exactly the way what I was thinking. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think to your point, Michelle, the solution is, and I know it sounds corny, but love. When you look at how the world is going right now, it's a rarity. So I think that it can actually help to be kind to others, not like Ellen DeGeneres, but like really be kind, not like it's a show. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if only people stop yelling at minimum wage workers over masks, that would be a good start, I think, for the pandemic.
Yeah, and when I think about love, I think about it from a lot of different angles. I think first and foremost, we have to get better at loving ourselves, because the more you can do that, I think the more you are encouraged to do things that ultimately are in your own interest. Now, I don't know the first thing about sports, but it caught my attention when that team out there, the NBA in Milwaukee, today decided that they weren't going to play in the playoffs tonight. To me, that's love. That's showing some love for yourself. It's showing some love for your people. It's doing something that's bigger than you, bigger than your personal interest. So I mean, I think love is a source of power. It's a source of energy, and that when we trivialize it and minimize it and deny it, what we're really doing is undermining our sense of power and creating a vacuum, creating the space where hateful people can dominate, and that's certainly what we're seeing in the body politic. So I think it's a whole kind of thing that we need to get clear about.
The
other thing,
it's contagious, Michelle, because after Milwaukee pulled out of the 3-game playoffs, so that the entire NBA.
Yes.
So it's contagious. It takes those people to step outside. It takes one person to step out, or a group. And then other people say, well, okay, I'm feeling this. So now the entire third game is, so this is, it's contagious. It really is.
And then also, here's the thing nobody wants. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rick.
No, what I was just saying is that, in my line of work, we noticed that, and I think a lot of NBA players noticed it too, if, they like to keep informed, is that we weren't talking at all about reopening. Remember, a week before we started talking about reopening, we need to reopen, Trump was very grim. All of a sudden, he was presidential.
Yes.
Which is, and then the ethnic data fell. We got them.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that overwhelmingly casualties were among African Americans, Native Americans, and Hispanics.
Yes.
Well, they started talking about reopening just after that. And the whole thing is like pushing. And the whole thing, the NBA, they're done. They're done being, the guinea pigs of the president's will. The only games that are going on are baseball and hockey, because obviously, it's easier. But basketball players, football players, and even college players, you notice you don't have a single black college football player doing, the tournament. You only have those white bullies. They look like, high school bullies that come out saying, my president is right. And you're like, it's our president, not yours. Like me against you, always that language.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at that point, coronavirus is revealing that the system, it's not just that, oh my God, we have weaknesses, is that we don't care. Those have been engineered because it benefits us, and we just don't care. You know, like when in the past people are saying, oh, but you know, they don't care about Black lives. A lot of people are saying they exaggerate. They it's not true. You have bad people. Now it's like, yeah, the system has been very clear. A lot of people are disposable, and they
Yeah.
don't care.
No.
And that's why we're in trouble, because the only way coronavirus is going to stop that is when it starts killing among Congress members.
Exactly.
Trust me, because right now it's a miracle these old people did not get a single casualty. That shows how protected they are when they're telling you don't wear a mask, and behind doors they wear a mask and gloves and have testing every day, you know, for free.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. They won't die.
But you know, yeah, yeah. So all right, we have weeks and months ahead to have delightful conversations about all the troubling things that I know are on the minds of all of the people in this chat room for sure. And you know, and I just, like I said at the beginning, I just think we need a space to kind of get some of it off our minds and stay as connected to reality as we can. So thank you, everyone. We will be back in this space a week from tonight, reading our story together. Bye.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Venita. Take care.
Thank you, Rick. Good night, Rick. Good night, Michelle.
Okay, good night.